Hi everyone, Kay Berkner here today with Dr. Tom Phelan, author and creator of 123 Magic, as well as the author of The Manager Mom Epidemic. Dr. Phelan, welcome.
Good morning, Kay.
How are you today?
Well, I thought I saw some real snow out there this morning. I wanted to go back to bed.
Well, we're glad that you decided to join us instead. I think that today's conversation is one that parents are going to be really interested in. Today, we are talking about kids' behavior during the holidays. And obviously, we have Thanksgiving coming up this week. With a holiday like Thanksgiving, where people can tend to be getting together, mom and dad usually have a lot going on with coordinating. What are some of the common challenges that parents might run into with kids' behavior over a holiday like Thanksgiving?
Yeah, Thanksgiving, anytime you get a lot of people together, people can get overly excited. Now, this year, it's going to depend on the household, who's actually there and so on. I think the biggest issue here, and the first one, is the parents' anxiety about the situation and about their kids' behavior. Because one of the things, kids are very good, just humans are, but little kids are very good at reading their parents. And if they sense that their parents are really anxious, or if the parents are giving them a lot of directions or telling them do this and don't do that and so on, I think it sort of backfires. The kids get irritated, they get kind of stiff. The parents are overly vigilant watching the kids for this kind of stuff. So my first suggestion would be to the parent, just take a deep breath. It's a get together. You may not be seeing that many people, and kind of let the kids do what they normally do. The little ones you can deal with at the time. The older ones, I think they understand some of the rules for managing these social situations.
Yeah, absolutely. So, talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned little ones, about getting little ones to behave during something like a Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, I would use the 1, 2, 3 magic. I'd use the counting for the obnoxious behavior. Now, if you're talking about dinner time, the first thing you want to do with the little ones is make sure they're hungry. So if they're snacking a lot at your house before you go over to somebody else's house, or they're snacking a lot wherever they are, they're not going to be hungry. There's a thing called the 3-minute rule. So then that is that if kids aren't hungry, they will be able to sit at a table for 3 minutes times their age. So a 2-year-old can last, about 6 minutes, a 3-year-old about 9 minutes. So if they're done eating, and and that's one of the hardest things about Thanksgiving and these other times, the kids are restless, they're not hungry anymore. The adults are getting nervous because the kids are starting to goof around. And I like it, the bigger kids, they can ask to be excused. The little kids, they can run around for a while till dessert or something like that. But I think the first thing you want to do is make sure they're real hungry when they sit down.
Yeah, I know we definitely have a tendency to, especially if you're the one preparing the meal or helping to prepare the meal, to kind of, when someone's pulling on your pant leg, to be like, here's a cracker, you're fine.
Yeah.
But it seems like that may actually be counterproductive when it comes to the actual meal itself.
It might, that's true.
Okay. So obviously some people may have some of that particular challenge this year with a big group together. But for some people, it might look a little bit different. So if people are trying to do, say, a physically distanced Thanksgiving, now I doubt that Illinois will do much of one because it might be snowing. But if you're in a warmer climate and are able to eat outside and are trying to get together like that, what are some things that parents should keep in mind when it comes to really kind of setting themselves and their kids up for success, to be able to have an enjoyable physically distanced event, but also make sure that you're not spending the whole time kind of being nervous and watching your kids and freaking out that they might get too close to other people?
Yeah. Well, I think actually in those situations, the first people that screw up are the adults. One of the rules of COVID is that normal social affection, interaction, expectations, and all that makes the adults do things that they shouldn't do, like give somebody a hug. And the kids see that, and now we're all goofed up. So we got to start with the adults. As far as the kids and the adults are concerned, you might want to start a get together by reminding people about 5 feet or 6 feet. And with the kids, you might even rehearse it at home. Have them, you, for example, go up to another family member and get closer than 5 or 6 feet, and have your child tell you, say, 6 feet. and then that makes you move back, and then you switch roles and have them rehearse it. Uh, and and see if you can make some progress that way so that they understand it. But one of the most frustrating things I've seen is the adults, and I mean, it's normal human affection. It's an understandable thing, but COVID is an understandable thing too, and we have the two at war together here. So it's a big
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely. Yeah. So almost like the way that you rehearse counting when you first start doing
Yeah,
the 1, 2, 3 magic program with kids. Very similar philosophy here is sort of practicing it ahead of time in like a kind of a low stakes situation to get the kids used to both the verbal cue, because in the case of the 1, 2, 3 magic program, the counting is the verbal cue, but also just the behavior and the response.
yeah. And I would use here, instead of the verbal cue of the count, I would use the verbal cue 6 feet, something real crisp, 6 feet, 5 feet, something like that. And the kids can do it, and you can do it.
Got it. Perfect. So, if families are deciding not to physically get together during the holiday, and maybe they're going to be getting together over Zoom instead, I know that one of the things we can run into doing Zooms at our house, and at our house we have kids ranging from 2 up to 14, so we run into a couple of things. But on the younger end of the spectrum, we sometimes get the kids get like kind of camera shy. So, maybe grandma or aunt or cousin is on the Zoom and like really trying to engage, and the kids are sort of hiding their faces or ducking off screen or giggling and running away. And then maybe the older ones are kind of like grunting or giving single word answers only to direct questions. So, as far as if families are doing virtual visits this Thanksgiving, what can parents do to help make sure that their kids are sort of prepared for that virtual interaction and that really everybody is getting the most out of it?
Yeah, it is hard. It's an artificial situation. And Zoom is a great thing, and it also can be fun because you're sort of like on TV. But it's an artificial situation that also makes everybody nervous. And what you tend to get into is a really deadly setup that is basically Q&A, question and answer. And you try and get your kid by the shoulder, you stick him in front of the, now that's grandma. And then the grandma asks questions. And of course, the first question that grandmas always ask is, how is school? She knows it's virtual, but she's going to ask, how is school? And the kid's like this, and grandma gets irritated, the child gets irritated. So you don't want to do the Q&A thing. It's too stiff on Zoom. It's way too stiff. What you want to do instead is you want the kids beforehand to be prepared with, what would you like to tell grandma? Do you know a good joke? Okay. Do you have a good story? Or something like that. And then we'll tell you when it's your turn. And if they refuse and you can't do it, you don't want to, force them to get in front of the camera. But if you can get something that they would like to communicate that has some emotional significance to them, and it could be a story, it could be a joke or whatever, and then they can do that. And you could even rehearse a little bit their part of it if you have somebody you can Zoom. We can at home, we can Zoom one another in the same house, so we could practice there. But the first thing is, by all means, avoid the Q&A, the question and answer. That is just a deadly killer of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that one of the other things that people sometimes run into on Zoom is people having trouble with the technology, maybe. A lot of times I think we see this with the grandparents, but really anyone who hasn't used Zoom a lot. Obviously, you and I are pros at this point. But we Zoom every week to talk to all of you lovely people. But if people haven't used Zoom or FaceTime or Google Meet a lot, you can kind of run into some issues with audio or camera position or people not muting themselves or things like that. So what can parents do to help make things easier from that point of view?
Yeah, there's really only one thing I can think of, and that's you have to rehearse and practice it. And the old folks are a big problem with it because a lot of them get irritated with this kind of thing. They feel stupid. That makes them feel more irritated. So you want to do way before the event, you want to do a practice session or two or three. The incentive for them, if you're talking long distance, their incentive for them is to see the children and talk to the children. And that's a big incentive. So you can tell them, we'd like to do the hookup to practice it in advance, tell them exactly what they have to do, try and reassure them. But if you can, if you know the Zoom, which you do, you can help, you have to sit at the screen, you have to click this button, you have to wait for a few seconds, and then tell them that it's different from a regular conversation. There's sometimes a hesitation of 1 or 2 seconds, and sometimes the graphic will freeze and the sound will go off and things like that. But prepare them, but do it. And you never know what's going to come up. You never know. People can't get their visual on, they can't get their audio on. If you're talking to 8 different people, there's always 1 or 2 who can't get this or that on, and the other 6 are just fine. So basically you want to rehearse it with the older folks first, and hopefully they can get comfortable with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's because then there's also not the sort of like, oh, I don't want to talk to you about Zoom. Just put my grandbaby on the phone,
Yeah.
So a little bit ahead of time, get everyone comfortable with it. Rehearse with the kids, rehearse with the grandparents. Everybody will be good to go.
And if the grandkids are around during the rehearsal, let them get on. It's a good practice for everybody, and the grandparents get to see them an extra time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Phelan. One thing that we will do is we will post to the 123 Magic Facebook page some Zoom rehearsal instructions for you guys. So whether you want to copy and paste those and email them to everyone that you're Zooming with this Thanksgiving so that they're prepared ahead of time, or whether you just want to use them for yourself, we'll go ahead and put those up on the Facebook page so that everybody can access them. Dr. Phelan, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about Thanksgiving, however you choose to celebrate this year. If
Thanks,
you haven't, oh yeah, absolutely. If you know someone who needs to hear this video, please share it or tag them in the comments. And if you're not already signed up for the 123 Magic newsletter, head on over to 123magic.com and get signed up now. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.